I think it like sets the meeting host to be like the first person that logged in, maybe.
Yeah.
Or joined.
All right, we'll assume that we have critical mass. All right. Hi, Nick. So actually we don't. Where's Endurance? Oh, he went to lunch. Yeah. So he had to go to lunch to meet with his friends.
Oh, yeah.
At 11:30. He left at 12.
As opposed to us.
Well, that's fine.
I mean, his friend.
Color
It
recruiter.
was like his teacher.
I am Andrew Seymour. I start all my presentations with this slide, in case you didn't know who I was. So we're going to talk about blogging. Can I get a show of hands who's at least written one blog post, maybe? Yeah?
Look at that.
You've written a blog post?
I wrote one for Clear Measure.
That's pretty awesome. That's good. So everybody kind of knows how to do blogging.
We have a travel
then.
blog, so I write travel blogs.
Oh, right on. That's cool. So we're just going to cover, this is all super high level, but we'll dig into the fact that blogging is for everybody. There's this common question of what would I possibly blog about, so we'll kind of get through that. We'll look through how to get started and then just some common tips and tricks as we go through this. I was hoping, that's why I wanted James and Simon, and we have Dave and other folks that have taken blogging to a whole new level, that this is a conversation. So don't just sit here and listen to me and fall asleep. Feel free to interrupt and talk and all that good stuff. So,
Are you sharing your screen?
I am. Are you not seeing my screen?
I'm not right now.
All right.
Me.
How about now?
There it is. Yep.
Better? Now I feel bad.
Next Tech Talk.
All right, Inventive.
meeting.
I mean, we're going to do blogging. These are the things we're going to cover. Think about this as a conversation, not a presentation. Now we're all caught up.
Wow, these slides are amazing.
All right, so we'll dig into the fact that blogging.
Pictures and everything.
Well, yes. Now, what you don't know is I just did this like a few minutes ago. So thank you. So what is a blog? Who, I guess, of anybody who's raised their hand, what do you guys use your blog for?
I haven't done it in a long time.
What did you do a long time ago?
Mine were just topics I wanted to discuss openly, so I wrote like essays.
Essays. Okay. Anybody else? Food? So recipes?
Yeah, how to do it, tricks.
And what was your reasoning behind it?
There's a lot of people that just don't understand how the basic.
So giving back to the community, to position yourself as a leader in that space,
Yep.
Those kind of things. Yep. So the idea is that, and a blog is a bunch of things, but to get started, a blog is for you. It doesn't have to be for anybody else. My good friend here, Miguel, has written all kinds of great content that I won't actually comment on that you should go look up because it's entertaining.
Oops, I sharded thrice. Look it up.
Just look up Miguel Gonzalez, I sharded thrice. It's great. So there's lots of motivations to do the blog, but effectively it's a log. It's just not paper, it's digital. I like it so that if I go and have to look through a bunch of different articles and I come up with my own solution, well, I figure I'm not the only guy with that problem. So I post my solution and a reference to all the other places. But the key for me is that I can always come back to it. So things that I've interacted with before, I can come back and remind myself. That's kind of an easy way to look at it. Could totally be recipes, could be other things that you're interested in, all legitimate uses for a blog. For some of the younger folks here or less experienced, the other part of a blog is to build who you are in your community. So think about going for an interview. There's like 5 minutes where you walk in the door. Generally, the interviewer makes all their assumptions about you within those, probably first 15 seconds or so. But a blog is different. So if I get an interview, you can send links to your blog. You can put them in your resume. When I'm interviewing people, I immediately go Google them. And I look at your Facebook and your LinkedIn, and hopefully you have a blog, because if you have a blog, you're, in my mind, more engaged than somebody who doesn't. So there's lots of value that comes just by having a blog, even if it's not like super polished and professional, and maybe the things you write are silly, like sharding your pants, but it informs me of who you are, right? So I know he's a super transparent guy that's going to tell it like it is. That's kind of what I take from it. If you're a designer, showing your artwork and not just the design side, but maybe the spray painting and telling a story of who you are, and that's a good use for a blog. I've also been in situations where I'll be in an interview, and they're like, hey, well, how would you solve this problem? It's like, can you pull up my blog? I wrote a whole post on how to do blah, blah, blah. So there's lots of ways to do this, but it just kind of is that vehicle, especially for nerds that generally aren't super social, if you can do this one step, you're already in a group, like a small subset of all of the engineers that most people aren't in. This takes effort, right? So if you can put forth just that little bit of effort, you jump one level ahead of most everybody else. Do you have a blog? No. How long have you been programming?
Like 12 years, 13 years.
Yeah. So I asked Nick Becker, who is like awesome engineer, but no blog. That's actually the norm. So what I'm asking you to go and do a blog is really hard for most of us. So not doing it is actually the normal state. So what would I possibly say to the world? And a blog is to the world. So I've got a farm blog all about all the activities and the crap that we build and welding projects and castrating pigs and like all these things. And so it's a mix of storytelling and a mix of how-tos, because I feel I can do it, so I'll show the world how to do it. I've got traffic from literally all over the world. People from Africa asking me to send them parts to chicken pluckers and describe how to put together chicken tractors and what kind of breeds of pigs or how do you cook a boar. Like, you get an audience from the world. So that's kind of cool. But so what would you say? So the easy thing is for new folks, you're learning all kinds of things. And at least in the first 5 years and realistically the rest of your career, you'll always be in a state of learning. So it's easy for you to blog. You always have content. It's like, what did you guys learn today? Mike, SQLize? Express? Anything?
Mostly
You've been here like 4 hours. You don't.
It's covering a lot.
Yeah. So so the idea and part of what we would teach normally is if you read it.
Mine.
Oh, wow.
Coach is here.
Yeah. So if you're reading it, just reading is not a good way to retain information. Writing it down. That's why we all take notes in some form. That act puts it in our brain. We don't have to actually refer back to the notes. So when you're learning, it's great to write a blog because you're actually regurgitating what you've learned. And you'll find you have questions that you go back and fill those gaps. So that's great. But it also, other people that are in your state can see your journey and they can learn in the way that you've learned. So you'll help people. So the other part, like when we're at work, there's all kinds of interactions where there's learning things. Like maybe we onboarded somebody that we did it too quickly. We didn't quite make the right decision. That's a blog post. Maybe the meeting that you guys just had about onboarding, just observations about how things could be better. That's a blog post. Auditing companies, architecture, maybe we over-index on microservices one day and we realize how that could be better. All those things are great blog posts. So soft skills, technical, like it's all, in my mind, it's all available.
How not to pull buildings for a map, right?
Yes. So
Blog post.
as a tactical thing, so I have done this. So I'm a fairly transparent guy. So I tend to blog in real time. Somewhere in here, there's a slide that will say blog in real time. So when I bump into things, here I go, share with the world. Well, I lost the job doing that one. So do be careful, with the content that you share. If you're going to share a story such as that one, I don't think this client would care. Share it in a manner that, if the client looked at it, they wouldn't think, oh, he's talking about me. That could be a bad situation. So I've been there, I've done that. The other part, a lot of you folks are building all kinds of side projects. So maybe you don't blog about a client, but a lot of the stuff that we're building in our incubator, and that's fair game. A lot of the website stuff we're building, that's all fair game. We've had people that like to build video games. Like it's all great stuff to add to a blog. It just kind of paints a picture of who you are and where you're at in your career, and you see a progression as you get better, but just look for any old content. And then lastly, it can paint the picture of who you are. Yeah, I chose that one for you. Who you are that's not the geek side, right? So Trinity likes to crochet, and I don't think you quilt, but what?
Not appropriate. Not for general consumption.
Very good. Yeah, they made an inappropriate remark, I'm sure. But Brandon, you guys may not know, is a mechanic. So he's got this whole other side of his world. Felix has a whole bunch of interesting things that unless you've talked to him, you may not know. So getting that sense of who you are outside of this geeky community just kind of elevates you. And I go to meetings with potential clients all the time, and I try to open up that who are you conversation, primarily because if you can kind of connect on several different points, they're way more likely to remember you. So when we go to the cowboy thing, WCRA, I couldn't wait to talk about pig farming and having horses and all. It's like, oh, this is a normal guy.
And they couldn't wait to tell us that the guy that was sitting right next to us was a 3-time bull riding champion.
4-time.
4-time bull riding.
Bull riding champion. Yeah. And he had, or no, Bronco. He was a Bronco rider. But that dude had like a grip of steel.
He was stout. The guy was just.
Yeah, it was crazy. So any questions on what you would say? Does anybody have any fear of not having the ability to tell a story of any kind? Any questions around that? I see you're processing.
I'm thinking.
You are, I mean, based on our interactions during lunch the other day, well, I've got plenty to say. You Nubian queen, you.
Nubian queen?
Yeah, that's a blog post right
I think
there.
you're going to take my openness to like a whole new level, and it's going to be exciting. Yeah.
It's just
Cool. So how do I get started? And a lot of you guys have blogged, so maybe this isn't as pertinent, but just to be clear on it. So in our world currently, when writing a blog, really the first decision is, where am I going to host my blog? What platform am I going to actually use? And there's a couple, massive decisions you can make. So you can host your own. So that's basically what we do for a lot of our clients. We go and install WordPress on some server somewhere. That's effectively hosting and managing your own installation of a blog. That comes with some pros and cons, and we'll look at that. The other side is to actually contribute your content to existing communities or existing platforms. For a lot of you folks that don't have a following, I would actually suggest that you get involved at like a Los Techies that has 1,000 other editors or contributors, but they have hundreds of thousands of followers. So you immediately get an audience in that kind of a community. LinkedIn and Medium would be another example of a place where you can post content and immediately get interaction, especially if you want to post stuff that is going to spark conversation. You need to have an audience, somebody on the other side to hold that conversation with. So pros and cons of hosting your own blog. I just took some notes here, but you get more control. So you have full access to themes, whereas if I post content in LinkedIn, well, it's in LinkedIn. I don't really have any control of that. So if you're doing more design-oriented stuff, some aspect of the web design and how you present yourself may be important. But if you're not, again, the traffic is kind of important. If you're going to talk about super controversial stuff like politics or things of that nature, a lot of platforms may actually kick you out. If you're going to do other things that are inappropriate, they probably will kick you out. So that may be pertinent to what you're doing. Los Techies is a great example. So I've got a following. I would love to talk about things that we're doing, but they specifically prohibit us from advertising business. So all of the people that are publishing there, it's all for the community and it's all non-business oriented. So just take those things into mind when you're creating your blog. You'd want to define what the purpose is for creating your blog. So if you want to make a lot of money on it, you may need to host your own. That may force that decision. So the cons of hosting your own blog, who's installed WordPress and run it for more than a year? Like there's administration aspects to that. You need to do backups on the server. You need to have a restore plan. You need to maybe re-index certain things. And there's some stuff there that takes time. So if you already don't have enough time to write content, you're really not going to have time to manage plugins and all that kind of stuff. So the other side is like the technology around making it fast. Dealing with spam bots. So if you put any kind of a contact form up there, you're going to get hit by a whole bunch of robots, pain in the butt. So you just kind of have to weigh some of that. When you go and contribute into an existing community, again, the biggest thing for me is, the traffic's built in, the ability to post and immediately get that feedback, and the no administration side of it. If I post something on LinkedIn, I throw it out there. I don't really care what happens, right? So that makes it easier. It's probably the right approach for most of you to go find. Medium is now a great place that you can do blogs, and they've got a huge curated audience there. That might be worthwhile. Cool. Any questions on hosting? No? So again, use an existing platform. For me, it's more about building the brand. So if we talk about your value to your career, well, if you have a great blog and nobody knows it, then that's not going to add value. So I just tend to pick what's the purpose of this, and then make those decisions from there. So it's also worthwhile. So was it Jimmy Bogard? So Jimmy Bogard was like he would post almost daily. So he's got 100 posts, maybe something like that, 1,000 posts, crazy amount of content. At some point, you can withdraw from a community, a platform, go stand up your own blog. It's onerous sometimes to port all that data and images and file structures and whatnot, but it's doable. You should, if you ever have that intent, recognize that in some environments, if you're posting stuff into like LinkedIn, you've lost control of that content. So be aware of keeping backups or some other way to migrate it. So blogging tools. So once you actually have a blog platform, that's kind of the start. That's the place to put your blog posts. So think about it as the hardcover to the book, and the pages are the actual content. So now we've got the hardcover to our log. We need to actually start generating some of this content. So if you've got a great idea, then you could write that down, a few hundred words, whatever, but you still need a way to get it in there. Most blogging platforms, you can just log into whatever that tool may be and just drop the content there. It's a little bit more complex because you'll have to actually write a paragraph, upload a file, maybe resize the file. It's just a little bit less streamlined, I guess, less efficient. I prefer to have a dedicated blog editor open. So it's much like having Word or some other program where I can just type content, drag an image in, resize it on the fly. And when it's all done and pretty, I just hit the publish button, it goes up into the magical cloud, and it's ready to go. For most of you, it's easier because instead of having to go and do a login process and actually go visit the tool, I can just have that tool be there and just use it in real time. I linked a couple here. If anybody else has any other tools that they prefer, for me on Windows, LiveWriter, and I think it's still the case, LiveWriter was the tool, like the only tool for really curating good blog content. It took me a while to get into the Mac side, so I found Blogo, but there are actually a whole bunch of blog editors for the Mac environment. Just look at the ratings. It's personal preference. So does anybody have any other tools that they like? ScribeFire would be another one.
So LiveWriter, and just beyond, LiveWriter is now Open LiveWriter, so that project is still active.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get the code now for that. Microsoft used to own it and run it, and they've ejected it into the community, which is good and bad. And it still doesn't run on Mac, which kind of blows, but cool.
Some of us have moved to just write in our blog posts right in Markdown, and then we do statically generated sites. So a bunch of us are using Hexo to generate the site from Markdown files.
Cool.
That's really good because we cross-post a little bit. So we'll post on like Western Devs and on our own blogs. And because it's Markdown, it's pretty much just copy and paste to move it across from different sites.
Right.
Yeah, on that point, there was another tool I was using for just Markdown or anything that lets you publish content to multiple places like Dropbox or GitHub. It's called Stack Edit.
Oh.
And it's just a browser plugin or a browser app.
We need that. So the only thing that I would caution folks, if you're not worrying about SEO, that all that's pretty cool if you're just replicating content all over the place. If you are worried about SEO, again, to your actual hosted site, if you have replicated content all over the place, that could cause your ranking to drop. So just be aware of that. So one of the things, unless you're writing a book and it's just a word wall, paragraphs and paragraphs of text, that's less interesting. You should have images and pretty things to look at because people are more likely to learn from that. So to do that, I find I frequently am going to need some kind of a screen capture type tool. So the ability to just take little snags of other people's images, or if you're doing coding stuff, maybe you want to screen scrape the Visual Studio or whatever your coding environment might be. So to do that, again, Windows and Mac, there's variations on that. You can grab Snagit in Windows, although I think they now have some kind of a screen snipping tool built in. Mac, I think, also does, but these tools just have a few more features that are baked in there. I am self-educated, which means I'm not educated. So I like to use something like Grammarly for all the reports that we write.
You did that on purpose, right?
What?
You spelled it wrong to prove the point.
Yes. Oh, wow, I really did. What's funny is I was going to purposely...
I thought it was to be like, will someone actually
Grammarly. I was going to intentionally misspell spelling and then mess up grammar check. But I was so focused on that, I obviously missed this.
So if you don't have Grammarly yet, you need to get Grammarly. Like it's
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
And the paid version
Help so
is
much.
amazing.
It's amazing. It's
It
not
changes
well
your world.
integrated to other tools, so there's some workflow issues in it. But the one that
You
plugs
can
into
copy
your
and
browser
paste.
for writing emails and that kind of stuff is invaluable.
Yeah.
I've written huge documents here, and I've passed it to a whole bunch of great people, and they sent back edits, and then I ran it through Grammarly, and there were literally like 1,000 other things that everybody missed, and it's crazy. So I just go through and get the score as high as possible because they have some nitpicky English professor type issues, but it saves you a lot of time.
That Oxford comma.
Well, and it just it makes you look.
They-
Yeah.
I think with Grammarly is be sure and go in and turn off all the notifications for, they'll pester you to death to buy it.
Well, I just bought it. I think it's worth buying. I use the free version. There is a free version for your plugging into Chrome, and that is definitely, you should all, if you learn nothing else, go do that when you get back to your computer. But I think it was like $15 or what was it? Do you remember?
It's not that much per month.
Yeah.
They discount for the year.
Do it. And if you're writing a lot of emails, maybe you're not doing that, but if you're writing a lot of emails or generating content on customer sites or any of those kind of things, you should have that tool. So, but definitely on the blogging. When you post stuff, again, audience is the world. You will get some nitpicky people. It's like, oh, you know, blah blah blah, whatever. And it's like, okay, I don't need to deal with it. So once you've created all of this content, the other thing that can really help you. So now think, you know, fast forward, I've got 100 posts. So we had talked about cross-posting stuff all over the place, but what you want to do is at least some form of social automation. So you can subscribe to Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever else all the hipsters are doing these days and post those links. But it's a manual task for you to go and post those links across however many platforms. And more than likely, you're not going to come back in a month or so and post the same link, which means it's a one-time shot. So if you use something like Meet Edgar, and there's a bunch of other platforms that you can use, you can post all of your links to your content inside of this tool and then create a schedule. And then this particular tool will just post it on Twitter more frequently. It'll cycle through all of your library of content and post it to LinkedIn maybe once a day and just kind of curate that constant feed or buzz. The value of that is people who haven't seen your content will get to see it. Even though you wrote it a year ago, it will come up in front of them, and you're just curating your audience that way. So, any questions on that one? No? Cool. The other part when getting started. So there's science, and I think it's somewhere around 28 days or 30 days, I bet you would know, about forming habits. So if you can consistently do something, say 30 days in a row, it will become a habit. It's just kind of how we work. So if you can defensively schedule, like I'm going to start writing a post, maybe you only write a post a couple times a week, but whatever it is you want to hold yourself to, actually schedule it. Put it on the calendar. When it's on the calendar, I find that if I'm sitting here and I have an invite, then generally speaking, people just bust into that. So for certain activities, go to the coffee shop. Go not only plan the time, but then go guard that time and be somewhere that you can't be bugged. Turn off Slack and your text messages and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll find once you start doing it, and it's a habit, so you'll start doing it with some frequency. Otherwise, you won't do it. I find if you don't make it a thing, it just won't get done. Because blogging is not usually like tip-top priority, right? So blogging tips and tricks. And I'm hoping this is more of a conversation, but there's a whole bunch of things. The number one thing that will kill a lot of people, and I know people that write the most amazing blog posts and nobody has ever seen them because they're so anal about it's not done yet. It's got to be perfect. It's a 4,000 word post with curated coding examples and screenshots, and like it's freaking amazing. Like it could be a book or an article or something of this nature. They never publish, like out of fear. Like there's no problem with publishing the content out there. It's your content. You can edit it. You could delete it if it's really bad, right? So if you post something that's confrontational, you can remove it.
I mean, the Wayback Machine's going to keep it, but.
Well, sure. People will take screenshots because they also have kind of a snipping tool. But the more important part is that you get it out there. So worry less. Blog is a very informal environment unless you're like, you know, an influencer on LinkedIn. Maybe it needs to be cool, but they still publish. At some point, you got to hit publish. So I wrote, you know, judgy people are going to judge you no matter how awesome your content is. If it's crappy, like I've had great conversations around just a crappy 500 word thing. It's good enough, right? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be 4,000 words. Maybe 4,000 words is actually 5 different posts. That might actually be better for you. So don't get stuck not publishing. Writing in real time. So I generally say keep your editor open. If it's open and just on some space in your screen, and everybody in here should have enough screens except maybe Nikki, we'll fix that. But if you can just keep it as an active thing, it's not quite like writing a tweet. Tweets are kind of throwaway. But if you come out of a meeting with like an inspirational, I really should write a post about it, you are way more likely to actually do it if you just do it. If you schedule it in a log and then eventually come back to it, you may have forgotten what motivated you and what inspired you to get that done. And I'm completely cool if you guys are here at work and you just pause and you write great, do your thing. Just do it.
No. Whatever you do, don't be that guy that's inside with a beanie.
Yeah, that is awkward.
It's not cool.
But we have a student like that. Do you know why he wears his beanie at all times? Because he doesn't want his headset touching his ears. So he wears a beanie to, and it's very cool if you are a hipster. Very cool. It's almost like Seattle grunge-ish. All right, the next part. So while I did just say go write it in real time, in my world, I have a lot of things I want to talk about. I would have to blog all day if I wanted to actually blog in real time. So at some point, you will get to a point where you just keep a journal of all the things that you want to talk about. And if it's important enough, you'll come back to it and you'll get it done. We recently stumbled across a bullet journal. If you haven't looked into bullet journals, I suggest you go YouTube it. There's a 5-minute video on how to do bullet journaling. It will change your journaling life. Miguel probably won't do it for 7 years because that's usually how long it takes for him to listen to me. But once you do this, like you'll have dedicated space for all your blog ideas. It doesn't matter if it's blog ideas or YouTube ideas or whatever it is, but write down the things that you think would be great, because at some point you'll have that scheduled time and you may go to your scheduled time. It's like, I don't have any ideas. Well, you can reference this and then you can start doing your content. I think that was the last one I had. Does anybody else have tips and tricks? Maybe the Canadians as far as inspiring content or how to get it done?
I don't know that anymore.
A bottle of wine. Yeah, there is a lot of science to having a distraction-free writing environment. I work best in a distraction-filled environment usually.
But I don't understand how you get anything done with that freaking music playing.
Oh, I love it. Well, so I live in a house full of 6 kids and 15 dogs and chickens outside crowing. And so when I'm in a quiet environment, I go nuts. I just can't do it. And then my ears constantly ring from shooting machine guns. So, any questions? Oh, I have been trying for like 7 years.
Evan has a check for that.
Yeah? Yeah, it's hard. I can't prove that they caused it. It's like, maybe. I don't know. Cool. That was all I had, guys. So if you don't have questions or
conversations. I was excited to blog.
So
anybody?
You may have covered this, but what is the cheapest way to start a blog? Like, what are the costs associated with
cheapest way to start a blog?
You can have a Facebook profile, a LinkedIn profile. You can go on Medium. You can go to inventive.com. There's all kinds of places that you can put content. There's cooking blogs. There's
Blogger also connects with your Gmail.
Yep. Geekswithblogs.net. If you're into Windows C# stuff, like there's a whole community of just those people. And it's great because you publish stuff and it's just a word wall of new posts that are coming through and you build an audience. That's where I kind of started. Geekswithblogs.net.
I started on there too.
Very good. Yeah, yes.
I have a question. What's a better? I'm sure some are better than others for getting your blogging content picked up by web crawler stuff.
I don't. It's more about the content that you have. Nowadays, most blogging platforms are pretty well structured for SEO stuff. The bigger thing is that you actually get traffic and get interaction and your frequency of new content. All of those things kind of help your rank more than the structure of what you're doing. And you want some density. So if you're talking about a given task, the density has to be there on that particular topic. So if you're talking about cooking fish and you end with cooking cow, and that's kind of confusing.
No, that wasn't my question. It was like, what platforms
Yeah,
are better than other for?
I don't know for SEO, because if you're hosting it on somebody else's platform, it's really their SEO. You're not necessarily getting it. You could drive traffic to your particular page, but if you're looking to drive traffic to a page, you're more likely trying to monetize something about that page. In which case, you'd probably be in your own platform. And if you're gonna host your own platform and you want it to be pretty, I am to a point. You should just be in WordPress. I've built blogging engines. I've used a bunch of other ones. Like WordPress owns how much content on the internet? It's like 50%, 75%, I think it was. Some crazy, stupid amount of the content is WordPress. So just do that. Especially if you're getting started and you really want to focus on curating content and not managing a website. That's just the easiest thing to do. Now, if you're super nerd, you can do other platforms. So you could host all your content in GitHub. You could use Ghost. Like, there are nerdy platforms that are fun. But any other questions?
How do you like narrow down? So like if like you have your own like personal interests, and then you have your like work interests, and then you have like, how do you, like, I know that you have the farm ones, and do you keep your content in separate places, or like it all lives differently?
Yeah, so I've got friendlypastures.com, which has, I think, 100 some odd blog posts on various stupid things. I haven't posted there in a long time, but it's all farm-related stuff. But if you search for Andrew Seymour, like, all the stuff from all the places will come up. So, yeah, I tend to do that, but some people, you may just have your name, in which case the focus is on all you. So you might have tech stuff. And
I have lamiguelona.com.
Yeah. I'm a weird case probably. I've got a bunch of places that I blog usually. So, and it's wherever I'm super passionate about. And my passion spurts are like 6 to 9 months. And then I moved over here, and then I go over there. So just depends on how focused you are.
She was reading my sharding.
I was reading his sharding,
sharding?
thing during his presentation.
That's why she
And I
started
started laughing. Like,
It's great.
I was like, oh my gosh.
And it's a completely true story.
Yes.
Anyway.
There
that
is a
so
Miguel
great.
pooped his pants 3 times blog post. And you should all read it. It's actually fun.
One of them
It's not
happened
bad.
here in Austin.
So he is a man who is lactose intolerant.
Park.
You should actually follow that post up with your I've been carb free and now I'm also lactose intolerant. Yeah. Like he can't have sour cream and cheese and milk and butter. And in the past 2
I
months,
just ate 4 little things of cheese right now.
yeah, no problem. Yeah. Like he used to be like, boom, I got a new blog post.
Yeah,
Carbs constant.
more tolerant?
Just not eating carbs.
Carbs can cause inflammation in your stomach.
Your stomach enzymes on your inside.
I call it the shits. The Hershey squirts.
I think that's probably taken in the SEO world.
You gotta read the post.
You should share it in the Slack channel.
That made my whole day.
But
I had to take a couple of them down.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. How do you feel about having like a product engagement page within a blog?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to promote a certain product, you kind of promote it as a blog.
Sure. No, that definitely
Devin
works.
Rose. So Devin, he had back problems. So he wrote all these blogs about all the different products that he tried out to resolve his back issues, and all of those were linked through Amazon through his affiliate program. So every time, those blogs got a lot of views, and every time somebody clicked on those or purchased the merchandise because they read his blog, he would make some money.
So if you're interested in that, there's a whole podcasting community around how to monetize your content world. So he was an example of go create this, 4,000 word thing. Like it's beefy. Then embed product links all over the place. Then put it in the social curation so that it hits all the channels constantly. And it might cycle down for a month or two. And then it's like, so he's like just generating all this traffic. And then he would curate Reddit and like, they make money on that. So
Thought about doing that.
it's worthwhile.
Just see what type of engagement I get.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where if you talk to the Canadian folks, like you're building this brand. So actually, James Shaw is another one. So James Shaw, one of our former coworkers, was trying to make a content. So again, the model of how do I generate money off of this thing? He was trying to generate money on a membership. So how do I get people that are director level or above to create a community where we can answer common questions that we all face when managing teams? So he wrote all these blog posts, and he created a schedule and created a topic list and wrote a massive long blog post with some consistency. He couldn't get the membership off the ground, but he found his dream job because people were reading his content. It's like, we really want to hire you. And so now he's got an amazing job working remotely to manage all these teams. And so he didn't monetize it in the way that he thought he would, but it still benefited him.
It still created his brand or helped his brand, right? And people, and you get a certain level of respect, right, off the bat, because they get some insight into you, right, before you even meeting you.
Yep. Just be consistent, especially if you're going to blog across a bunch of different platforms. Be you, like be the authentic you, no matter where you're at. Way easier to remember who you are if you are honest about it. When you go to social interactions and people say, "Hey, I saw this really confrontational thing. I don't want you here." Like, you don't want to do it.
We've been at so many different places. Andy's sort of a social whore. But we've been to so many places where people just, "Aren't you Andrew Seymour? And where's your red mohawk? And I remember that kilt," and all this other stuff, because he's all over the place, right? Like, it's crazy.
I remember getting off the bus in Alabama for some event, and some other dude was getting off the bus like, "Hey, I don't know you, but I know you. Like, you're at this." Is like, "Hey, oh," like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Flugelhorn.
Yes.
Who the Flugelhorn are you?
Flugelhorn is the accepted F word. We are all trying to make ourselves better in that arena. There are other Rebecca-approved words. If you're curious, they are written on the whiteboard. Big ass. Big ass is an accepted phrase.
Shit.
Shit is acceptable. Oh, yeah. But poopy pants.
They push us.
Yeah. No poopy pants. Cool. Who's going to create a blog? You had asked a question. Who's interested in blogging?
Yeah, I had asked who was excited about blogging, and then, let's sign everybody up at least, to blog on the Inventive.io blog. It's been added to the website. Is that right? Yeah. So just let us know so that we can create an account so you guys can blog.
Yep.
I'm definitely interested.
Just be careful not to take.
I'd love to hear process around your design process and actually build a brand around that, or how to manage onboarding websites.
I think Felix has all these streams of creativity that he's got. I think that would be amazing.
Concept,
kind of just.
I think we're pretty open.
It
it can't have certain things in it, obviously, but so from my perspective, if you're just writing about whatever you're interested in, and that's a profile about you, you're going to end up with a page, and we'll link to all your stuff. That's okay. If we want to talk about engagements or how to solve problems, then it's mostly going to be all okay. I think we're going to give you more freedom than you might be used to at other places, and we'll figure it out as we go.
Because I like writing D&D campaigns. So
hey, that sounds like a blast.
If that's cool to just put that in there.
Yeah. Well, and some stuff, so we may end up with a categorized blog for the homepage, and other stuff may just show up on your page. That's okay. Yeah, it all works. We'll figure it out. What was that?
Here.
Okay.
Somebody called this meeting.
Nobody has anything else. That was all I had. Thank you for attending. Oh, there is other business. So I created, if you do a search in Drive for Tech Thursday, there's a folder in there. There is a spreadsheet in there that has a schedule. So if anybody's interested in doing this activity, again, either to teach or curate a conversation or go learn something and bring it back to the group, all of that stuff is acceptable. Also does not have to be necessarily code. It could be recipes or photography, or this is more about just getting us together and learning and helping people. We'll probably record them. So the ones that are worthwhile, we'll post those to YouTube or what have you.
No pressure. The ones that are worthwhile.
Well, some things probably won't make it, but again, we don't know what that is, but we'll see. But if you're interested in doing it next, so right now we're running these monthly. So if you have something that's just top of mind, or you've done a lot of public speaking already and you just already have a presentation, all that's fine. Throw it in the schedule, and we'll figure it out from there. Cool. Any interest in speaking?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possible
Do you
interest.
speak normally? Do you go to events and speak?
No, but
I will help you with
I'm not
that.
opposed to that.
Yeah, it would be good. Everybody should know the feeling.
I've had to set up booths at conventions. So.
And that's something a lot of people couldn't do.
I'm actually going to a UI UX conference / design jam today.
Oh, cool.
Curated by Adobe and some of my designer friends. So they're going to be speaking, and they're holding like a competition, and they're going to have judges. So
we should go hire from there. That sounds like a recruiting event for us. Yeah. We need more of you.
Oh, on the other front of,
I'll give you mine.
we were talking about team things that could also possibly turn into a blog. Is they do like
7 to 10
every 3 or like every half year maybe if they do like game jams. So that would be something cool we could maybe do as a group.
Yeah.
Where we just sign up for the Austin one or whatever.
Is it like bring your computer network to gaming or?
No, it's make a game in like 2-3 days.
Oh.
So like over the weekend. So like you take a
board
team.
Games?
Could be board game or computer based, and they'll have tools and stuff for you to work with. So you go and you find teams to work with, and then you just kind of come together. And they need everything from graphic design all the way to even like salesmen. Like if you don't know anything about coding, but I know how to sell things. Like
Yeah. No, that sounds fun.
It's kind of cool.
After bubble soccer. All right, guys. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Wow. Bye, remote people. Hey, Endurance just walked in.
Let's go.
Yay. He was late for his lunch and late for this meeting.